Right, good morning. Welcome back to another video. I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but it is absolutely tipping it down, and it has been for weeks where I'm based. So I thought I'd do a bit of work on the website today, and something that we're going to cover is the fixed costs of running your business. So I've actually built a new calculator for the site, which should make your life a hell of a lot easier. So when we're looking at the fixed costs, we're talking about everything that it costs to have your business up and running, regardless of whether you're leaving the house or not. So that means things like your salary, paying yourself, and it also means all of your equipment that you've bought that's sitting there depreciating, and all of your overheads like your marketing costs and everything else like that, admin, accountancy fees, the cost of running a business basically. So everything that sits there and it's costing you money every day if you're not out and running. On a day like today, we still got fixed costs coming in every day, and you know, we're going to have to try and make up for that elsewhere. But that's actually covered in this calculator. So I think a lot of you have probably been on this page previously. So when it comes to your salary, it's one of the biggest costs your business is going to face. But what you can't do is just say, okay, I want to earn £20,000, £30,000 and divide that up by how many days you want to work, because there's additional costs. So because you're self-employed or you're running your own small limited company, you're going to want to put money aside into your pension, for example, and then there's all the various different other costs associated with you being in business. So it could be your uniform costs, your workwear, your PPE, all that other kind of stuff. So there's a bit of a rule of thumb in business that if you take the salary of someone and you times it by 1.2, so you add 20% on, that should help cover all the other costs of them being employed. So we need to do the same within our own businesses. So as an example here, I've said if you want to earn £30,000 a year, you times that by 1.2, your salary cost, the cost of employment, is going to be £36,000. So there's a good yardstick for you. So that could all be costs. If you're not factoring them in properly, that will be money that will be coming directly off your income. It's important to include all of the costs you're actually going to face. And if you build a worst case scenario, the worst thing you can do is make too much money, whereas if you're undercharging, the worst thing that can happen is you make too little money and then you're not profitable. So I think the second biggest cost that we're all going to face in our businesses is the cost of your fleet. And the fleet's probably a grand word for your van or your car or whatever it is you're using to run the business. As you've read on the website previously, my first vehicle, I bought it outright. I bought a brand new ex-demo van, and I think it was a Citroen Dispatch, and back in the day it was £11,500 plus VAT, which is crazy cheap compared to what van prices are like now. Since COVID, I've started leasing actually now. So I walked into a Vauxhall combo van, which I just needed something during COVID, couldn't get hold of a new van. So I got that, and it was about £200 a month. And then I ordered my VW Transporter a year or so ago now, and that is knocking on £400 a month. So you can see here in the figures that what I've done is I've given you an estimation. They're probably a little bit out of date, these figures now, but it'll give you an idea, because you need to include whatever the cost is of leasing. So it will be 12 months of whatever your lease cost is, plus whatever the deposit is, divide that by the number of years you've got it. Or you need to look at what the depreciation is like on your van. So if you've bought a van for 30,000, 20,000, 10,000, what will that be worth in a number of years' time? So you can work that out. You can have a look at what your insurance cost is and your road tax, and that's the number that you need. So the next thing is you need to work out what your annual equipment costs are. So the easiest way to do this is to add everything up, everything that you've bought to run your business, and then you can divide that by the number of years that's going to be useful to you. I like to use 3 years as an example. If I manage to get 4 or 5 years out of it, then that's great, but it means that there's money. I can be able to put this amount aside every single month into a separate savings account, so that I know I've always got the money there to replace the equipment as and when. So you need to make sure you factor this in, otherwise you're going to have to end up dipping into your own pocket to buy the equipment, whereas the business should be able to support itself. Finally, one of the smallest parts is the admin and marketing costs. So this could be anything from your mobile phone, accounting, business cards, website hosting. So we're not talking huge sums of money, but you definitely need to include this as well. So in this little example I've worked out on the website, you'll see that I've put down £36,000, which is a £30,000 salary plus 20%. So the cost of employing me is £36,000. The small van is costing me about £3,755 a year. The equipment is costing me about £2,000 in depreciation each year. And then the other bits and bobs, admin and marketing, about £2,000 a year. So for me to run my business, before I've even gone anywhere, it's costing me £43,741. Now, these aren't the numbers from my business, but they're the example numbers that I'm giving. So that's fine. So we've got ourselves a huge number there, and it actually looks quite scary. So what I've done in a previous article as well is looked at how we can make that number make more sense. So, for example, I've decided that I can sell about 100 and not that I can sell, I probably want to work about 183 days a year. That includes bank holidays, paid holidays, sick days, and then obviously days like today where you're rained off and the ground's too wet and you can't do anything. You've got to factor all that into your equations. So I've made this fixed cost calculator to make everyone's life that bit easier. So you don't even need to do any maths with this, you just need to do your best estimates. So you can say that, for example, I want to earn £30,000. Okay, and my van is probably going to cost, sitting there on the driveway, £5,000 a year, let's say, including the lease costs, the insurance costs, the road tax, the amount I'm setting aside for maintenance, all of that stuff. It doesn't include fuel, that's a variable cost, and we'll cover that in another video. My machinery, let's say as a startup machinery, you might spend £2,000 on one mower, £1,500 on another, so what's that? That's £3,500. £500 on strimmers and bits. Let's say £4,500, okay, to get us started. And we're going to say that's going to last for 3 years, okay. In terms of marketing, so you need to set a bit aside to get that going. Your annual accounts. Let's say we're going to spend £2,500 in the first year to get us up and running. So there we are. So now we know that our annual fixed costs are £45,000 for the first year, or every year. So let's take that number and make it useful. Let's calculate the workable days in a year. I've pre-filled this with some of my numbers, but you feel free to put whatever you want in. So we're saying how many days do I want to work a week? I only want to work 5. I don't want to work Saturdays. I don't know what you're like. You might want to do that, but I only want to work 5. If I do work a Saturday, then it will be a bonus, and I want to get paid for it. So the choice is yours. I want to take 30 days of paid holiday a year. I mean, I'm not an employee, I work for myself, so I want to have a nice lifestyle and I don't want to be right up against, working myself to the bone. So 30 days worth of paid holiday. That includes the bank holidays, because don't forget, employees of a big business will get paid for bank holidays. You won't unless you work them. So that's why you have to account for this. Now, touch wood, I've never actually taken a day off sick in many, many, many years. But the average, I think, in the UK is something like 5 days off sick a year. So because we're physical manual labourers, you might break a leg, you might hurt yourself, you might get I don't know what. But I've put 7 in just because you want to make sure you're covered. And then how many days will we not be able to work because of the weather? This is the big factor. So I typically don't like to work January and February. So if I just say I write January and February off, and then that's approximately 20 days a month, 5 days a week, so 5, 10, 15, 20, and it's 2 months, so that's 40 days. So I generally, if you can work them, that's great, you'll make more money. But what we're trying to do here is work on a worst case scenario. So there we go. We can now get 183 workable days a year. The next question is, how many hours can you work in a day? I like to work 6 hours in a day, and the day itself might be 8 hours because you've got to drive to site, you've got to take some breaks, you've got to drive between jobs, you've got a bit of chat with the customers, all this kind of stuff. So I say, in terms of billable time that I'm on site on jobs, I can only work 6 hours a day. You might be able to work more, you might want to work less. But the problem is we've got all those fixed costs sitting there, so they have to be absorbed by every hour that you're working at a customer's job. And then here we go, calculate my fixed costs per day. So that means that with our 46,000, what were we looking at? I can't remember now. £45,000 of total annual costs. It means that the fixed cost per day is £245. That's how much it costs us to have the doors open for the business. And it means that the fixed costs per hour are £40 an hour, £40.98. Now remember, this doesn't include your profit, and it doesn't include your variable costs. So your variable costs are things like the fuel in your van and the fuel in your mowers and the fuel for you. So if you're going to buy some lunch or something when you're out, it doesn't include that. So, but we're not talking about a huge amount. That could be £10, £20 a day, £30 a day, something like that. Depends on your machinery and what you're running, and also how far away from home you work. The key thing though is to look at that, £245. So if I want to earn £30,000 a year and pay myself into a pension and make sure that my machinery is all replaced every 3 years, and I need to make sure that my van is maintained, and basically to have a nice little company that looks after myself, given these numbers, I need to earn a minimum of £245 a day for 183 days of the year. And that's how I'll meet those numbers. But let's say you're a little bit less ambitious and you don't want to earn £30,000, you only want to earn £20,000. Okay, we'll see what that does to the numbers. So my fixed costs have now dropped down to 33,000. I'm still working 183 days a year. I'm still working 6 hours a day. There you go. We've gone now to £180 a day. Or we need to earn £30 an hour for 6 hours just to cover those costs. Now remember, you've got to add your variable costs on, and you've got to add your profit on top as well. So you know, if you're saying you might burn through £5 or £10 an hour of fuel in terms of you moving the van around and also running equipment, so that might go up to £40, and then depending on what your profit margin is, it may be 10%, maybe 20%. So you're basically looking upwards, mid-40s at least, as your hourly rate for you to achieve these numbers, on the basis that you can work for 6 hours a day for 183 days a year. If you want to take less paid holiday, so let's knock him down to 20 days of holiday, okay, and let's say you're only going to allow yourself 1 sick day a year. Okay, then you can work 199 days in the year, which means you're then right the way down here. £27 an hour, £165 a day in terms of your fixed costs. If you actually think, well, you're being silly there, 40 days a year that you're not going to work, that's ridiculous. I'm going to take Christmas off. Well, I'm already got that in my paid holiday, but let's say in terms of the weather, let's say I can't work for 20 days of the year. Okay, that gives us 219 workable days each year, and that then means that we're then down at £25 per hour in terms of our costs, or 150. If we now bump ourselves back up to the £30,000 that we wanted originally, okay, it then means that we're back up to the £45,000. We're working 219 days a year, and that means that we're then got to be earning £205 a day. So you can see how useful this is, and you can play with your numbers, and you can go a bit, you know, so let's be ambitious, and so we want to earn £60,000 a year, okay? All of these are the same, which means we're now, the annual fixed costs are £81,000 a year. But, yeah, 20 days holiday, that's fine. Still only want to work 5 days a week. I'm going to bump myself back up to 5 days of sickness and injury, and I think I'm going to find other things to do, whether I'm doing pressure washing or window cleaning or some hedge cutting, something that I can do in the rain. Let's say I'm only going to take 10 days off due to the weather. That gives me 225 total workable days. Still only going to work 6 hours a day because of the travel time and everything else, which means that I need to earn £360 a day, or at least £60 an hour, to be able to pay myself the £60,000 a year that I might have wanted to. So that's all live now and on the website. What I'll do is I will post a link in the description below so you can head straight over and play with it yourself. Let me know in the comments what you think, if you found it useful, if you want me to do any more videos like this. Thanks so much for watching. Cheers.